The next Treyarch game is coming out soon, and that means zombies is going to be returning. Once that happens, people are immediately going to drag out the comparisons to past games, and the two games it's immediately going to be compared with are Black Ops 3 and 4. The comparisons are going to center around whether this game is going to be as good as Black Ops 3 or as bad as Black Ops 4. Now normally I'd take the time to comment on how bad Black Ops 4 was, but in this video I actually want to focus on the former game. The comparisons between this next game and Black Ops 3 are warranted. Black Ops 3 was the best game in the series in the eyes of many, and it's only natural to ask whether this next game will be able to match it or even surpass it. But this could be a dangerous comparison if we don't remember the entirety of what happened with this game. Now what I say next might offend some of you, so before I say it, let's recap what happened during Black Ops 3. Before the game even launched, Black Ops 3 had a lot of people worried. The Shadows of Evil reveal trailer had a lot of people scratching their heads as to why an alien tentacle monster was in their zombies game.
Holy Jesus! What is that? What the fuck is that?
This is something people don't seem to remember, but Black Ops 3 did not have people coming into it with the highest hopes. But then we actually got to play the game, and as we know, Shadows would become one of the best maps in the history of the game mode, as well as my own favorite map. However, it wasn't quite there at launch. The map had some critical problems that still needed to be sorted out. For starters, opening Pack-a-Punch was an extremely tedious process, as you could only carry one Gateworm at a time. This sent your game into a screeching halt as you tried to open Pack-a-Punch at the end of a round. The trials to obtain said Gateworms were also far longer than they are now, and this resulted in a lot of your game being reduced to waiting. Waiting for the Gateworm trials to finish, waiting for the Margwa that spawns in afterward to open its mouths, waiting for the Gateworms to be transferred from their respective trial to the Pack-a-Punch, and waiting for the Pack-a-Punch trial to finish. Waiting. There was also a game-breaking issue with the zombies themselves. In previous games, it took a couple of seconds for the zombies to down you. Even if you were completely surrounded and trapped in a corner, you usually had some time to react to getting hit. In Black Ops 3's launch state, if you so much as grazed your train, you could and oftentimes would get hit 5 times in less than a second, causing you to go down before you could even react to the first hit. This plagued the game at launch for many and took some time to get resolved. Now all of these issues would be mostly resolved by the time the first DLC came out, but first we should briefly touch on the other map that was out at launch. The Giant was the pre-order bonus with certain editions of the game, and it was a remake of the fan favorite Der Riese. As far as balance and glitches go, the Giant was in much better shape than Shadows of Evil, which is to be expected for a map as simple as this one. There were some glitches for sure. I can remember a time where my Wunderwaffe was brighter than the sun. And some of these glitches actually caused people to believe that there was a full-fledged Easter egg on this map. There was only one major flaw in this map that would affect the rest of the game, but we'll come back to that later. But aside from that fan misinterpretation of a visual glitch, there wasn't anything here that was uncommon for a AAA game. Things really got going once the DLC season started. The Horizon Drek had the most hype of any map we've ever seen up until that point, and it delivered and then some. An incredible Easter egg with both great storyline additions and the first boss fight of any major Easter egg, the return of the Death Machine and the zombies, new Gobblegums, 4 more excellent wonder weapons, great map layout, the Ragnarok specialist weapon. We could be here for hours just talking about all the great things Horizon introduced into the game. And while this map flourished, Shadows of Evil and the Giant only got better as more updates fixed what problems they still had left. By the time April rolled around, the game was in a great spot all things considered. We had one of the best maps of all time, and Shadows of Evil was well on its way there if it wasn't there already. So far so good. But then we hit a storm that quite literally rocked the boat. Zetsubo Noshima took all of the hype Horizon had built up and sucked it out of the room. Now before we get any further, I actually like this map. It's not the greatest map in the world by any means, but it's not a map I hate. Just reminding everyone that this isn't a hate piece on the game, but just an account of what happened. The fact of the matter is that Zet had some major problems on launch that crippled the game. For starters, the Easter egg was solved in under 24 hours, which killed a lot of the hype coming from that side of the community. Usually these last for a couple of days at least, and it's often seen as disappointing if they don't. The storyline content the map delivered was great, but the adventure of the map ended too soon for many. It also didn't help that we already knew what was going to happen before we even set foot on this dark dank island. Remember that one flaw with the giant that I mentioned earlier? Well, that flaw took the form of a cipher that, when decoded, essentially laid out the events of Black Ops 3 before our very eyes. We knew there was going to be a castle, an island, and Stalingrad before any of these maps had officially been released or even announced. And while we didn't necessarily know the order, more ciphers on Der Eisen let the cat out of the bag for Zetsubo before the map had even been announced. The mystery that kept people's mind on the game was solved before Treyarch could even work their magic. Combine these factors with some poor gameplay balance and you've got yourself some major problems. Opening the entire bunker on Zetsubo cost over 10,000 points. Thrashers spawned far too frequently, the wonder weapon crafting and upgrade process were difficult for some, and an extremely buggy launch, just to name a few. Like Shadows of Evil, these issues would be solved with updates over time, but for many, Zetsubo was just never going to be a better map than Der Eisen or Shadows of Evil. Hell, even the Giant was a better map to some. Zetsubo at its best just isn't that enticing of a map, which caused many to look to greener pastures. It'd be shocking for some to hear that people were struggling for content during the middle of Black Ops 3, but it was true. During Zetsubo, the community fell into a deep sleep, which only made the gap between this map and the next feel especially long. But while the bear sleeps, it grows hungry, and eventually something is going to wake it up. Garad Kurovi released in the middle of the summer, and the community went from its most dormant state to the best shape it's ever been in. GK was an instant classic like Der Eisen Drac before it, and it was only propelled further into the spotlight by the Z-House and EE4C. The Easter egg was not only one of the best parts of the map for some, but it also got people excited for the final map of the game. And while the map had some glitches on launch, only one was particularly game-breaking. And most of the glitches on the map were fixed before the end of the summer. But about that final map. Revelations had the most hype around a single map for the first week of its release. The Easter egg hunt was the most viewed event in all of Zombies history, and once it was solved, everyone was underwhelmed. The final boss fight could be completed in under 10 seconds, and the ending cutscene left a lot to be desired. That being said, some people wanted a 10-minute cutscene, so that part might have just been fan expectations being set too high. But even the gameplay had a lot of holes. The map was extremely easy, and people were getting to round 100 and beyond not long after its release, and the strategy hasn't changed since. The map design took the bulk of the heat, as most of the map is made up entirely of older maps. It's a cool idea in theory, but it left a lot of people feeling like the map was just more of what they already knew. It wasn't the finale people wanted. And it didn't end up being the finale after all. Zombie Chronicles was released out of nowhere, and the hype around this new DLC shattered anything we saw with Revelations. It immediately became the highest selling DLC in Call of Duty's history, not just Zombies, the whole franchise, and has added the most replayability to any Zombies game by far. This one DLC rewrote the book on this game. It took a game with a handful of strong maps to the clear high point of the entire series, since the entire series was part of that one game. It gave the game its storybook ending, and despite Treyarch releasing another full game, it hasn't been topped. So now that we've recapped the events of Black Ops 3, hopefully we've remembered what it was actually like. It wasn't the perfect game people see it as now. It's grown into those shoes, but there were plenty of lulls and quiet moments too. And that brings us to this new game coming out. If we're going to compare it to Black Ops 3, we need to remember what Black Ops 3 was actually like. If this game comes out and it has some problems on launch, we should remember that so did Black Ops 3, and that they might get fixed in an update. If there are quiet moments during the game where it feels like nothing's happening, we should remember that so did Black Ops 3. That they'll come to pass soon enough. And given the rumors about this new game's development, this might be something we're all going to need to keep in mind. If we're using Black Ops 3 as the gold standard that we compare all future Zombies games to, we have to take off our rose-tinted glasses and remember what actually happened during the life cycle of this game. Or else nothing is going to live up to those expectations. That's all I have to say in this video. Thanks for watching, like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.